Hey, I'm Circle Strafe, and welcome to episode 10 of the Dante's Inferno rundown. In this episode, we're going to be finishing up Circle 8, with pouches 8, 9, and 10. These are the deceivers, the sowers of discord, and the falsifiers. Past a jagged stairway of difficult to pass rocks, Dante finally stands on the edge of a deep chasm. Within that abyss, he sees little flames moving around. He says that the motion of the flames are like Elijah's flaming chariots, rising to heaven as a star. Virgil says,
"The dancing lights on which you peer contain the centers of this pouch. They are hidden by the flames which surround them."
This is the pouch of the deceptive counselors. Dante is curious, and so looks over the edge of their raised position for a better view. He sees a unique flame split into two, like flaming horns. The flames then begin to approach our poets together. Dante asks Virgil to explain which sinners suffer beneath these particular flames. Virgil replies that they are Ulysses and Diomedes. Due to their sins, they are punished together in a single joint flame. The two sinners were single-handedly responsible for the deception of the Trojan horse. They also had a hand in the theft of Pallas, a sacred religious idol of Athena at the Palladium. Dante urges Virgil to let him speak to them. Virgil agrees with the sentiment, but he says that they may look down on Dante, them being Greek and he speaking Italian. Virgil asks Ulysses how he died. The bigger of the two flames wags back and forth like a tongue as the sinner within replies. This represents their sin as evil counselors.
When we returned from the Trojan War, we explored more than we intended. We sailed past Spain and the Pillars of Hercules, but I thirsted for more. We sailed to the southern hemisphere where the stars are upside down, and finally reached the mountain of Purgatory. God judged that we had traveled too far and raised a whirlwind against our ship, killing us all.
Virgil permits the pair of souls to leave, and another sinner approaches the poets. The new sinner groans and moans in muffled, unintelligible words. Dante strains to understand the tongue flame, comparing the sounds to the noises of a Sicilian bull torture device. The sinner asks our poets to be spared punishment for just a moment for conversation. He inquires as to how his hometown of Romagna is doing. Dante replies that Romagna is never without war, but the last time he visited there was no active strife. Dante asks the sinner who he is. Being in hell, the sinner believes that Dante will never be able to tell anyone else anyway. He thinks our poet is also a spirit. The soul starts to tell his history, but never actually states his name. He is identifiable in his description as Guido da Montefeltro. The sinner was a former soldier who repented and became a friar. As a young man, he was a turncoat and backstabber, and then he became a holy man as he aged. The Pope, who was at the time feuding with Christian families, asked Guido to name some of the families he should go to war with. He offered Guido pre-absolution of his sins for his counsel. Guido's counsel then turned out to be false after the Pope lost those battles. When Guido died, St. Francis came down to save him, but a demon appeared to snatch him up instead. The demon stated that absolution could only be given on sins a person had already committed. Pre-absolution was not permitted. The demon delivered Guido to Minos, who then threw him into the 8th circle. Guido is heavily upset whilst retelling his tale, and he leaves. The poets move onwards. At pouch number 9, Dante finds it hard to speak as he witnesses the punishment for this new band of sinners. Bloody and wounded souls litter the landscape. Dante describes it as more horrendous and grotesque than the carnage of some of the worst battles combined. This is the pouch of the sowers of discord. The first soul that Dante sees has been split across the middle in such a state that all of his organs are visible. The sinner sees Dante and opens up his split chest wider for the poet to see, crying out to Dante that he is Muhammad. He points to another man named Ali with a face cleaved in two. Ali was responsible for the splitting of the Sunni and Shiite tribes of the Muslims. Within this pouch, the sinners walk in circles, healing constantly until they reach a demon. Muhammad tells Dante that the demons slash them and split them apart with swords. This is just as the souls split others apart in life. Muhammad asks Dante why he can walk around without having his guts on show. When Virgil explains Dante's mortality, the souls in the pouch become aware of the situation and stare at Dante. Muhammad tells Dante to deliver a message to his friend Fra Dolcino to tell him to stock up on food or else he will starve and join them in the pouch. Muhammad then walks away. Dolcino did eventually starve in the real world. Pier de Medicina approaches our poet with his throat slit and his ear and nose cut off. He requests that Dante make him famous in the mortal realm. He then asks our poet to deliver a message to two endangered sailors. Dante says he will do so if Pier identifies another soul for him. Pier directs Dante's attention to Curio, the man who convinced Julius Caesar to betray his friend Pompey and attack Rome. The attack started a civil war. His mouth is split into pieces and he is unable to speak. Pier points out another man with no hands, presenting himself as Mosca de Lamberti. He contributed to the bad blood between the Guelphs and the Ghibellines in Tuscany. Mosca requests to be remembered as well. Dante informs Mosca that he brought death to his own family, and the sinner runs away in misery. The final sinner approaches. Dante implores the reader to trust his next words. The sinner is headless, carrying his head in his hand. The sinner lifts his head like a lantern towards our poets to speak with them. He challenges Dante to find a more punished soul in hell than himself. As Bertrand de Born in life, he turned Prince Henry against his father, King Henry II. Dividing father from son was the trigger for him to be carrying his own divided head in hell. Virgil hurries Dante along. He says,
"There are many souls to see. We cannot speak to them all."
Dante states that he believes he saw a sinner from his own family suffering in this pouch. Virgil explains that whilst Dante was speaking with Bertrand, he spotted Dante's kinsman, whom the others named Geri del Bello, shouting insults at Dante from far away. Geri del Bello was violently murdered in a battle between the Alighieri's and the Sacchetis. As an unavenged man, he is angry at Dante, but this only makes Dante pity him and feel sorrow. The two poets walk over a bridge to the 10th and final pouch of Circle 8. Dante is forced to cover his ears as they descend the slopes into the 10th pouch. The sinners within wail in terrible agony from the might of unbelievable pestilence. Dante states that it is more rife with disease than the myth of Aegina. Aegina was an island cursed to disease by the wife of Jupiter after the god king's infidelity. This pouch, the pouch of falsifiers, stinks of rotten flesh. The souls in pouch 10 heap and crawl around, suffering from horrible illnesses. Dante sees two sinners propped up against each other, scratching at each other's scabs furiously. He compares the violence to malcontented stable boys taking out their frustrations on innocent horses. Dante continues by saying that they attack like kitchen knives trying to descale fish. Virgil asks them if they know any Italians nearby, and they answer that they are in fact Italian. They ask who he is and why Dante is alive, much like everybody else does. Again, Virgil explains. The two sinners and some of the souls nearby peer at Dante in amazement. Virgil gestures to Dante to ask his usual questions. Dante tells them to identify themselves, promising to make them famous when he returns to the land of the living. The first sinner tells that he made Albert of Siena angry by joking that he could teach him how to fly. This was not the crime which landed him in hell, however. This man practiced alchemy, falsification of precious metals, for which he was burned at the stake. He names himself as Griffolino d'Arezzo. Dante criticizes Siena loudly. Before Griffolino can argue his case, another sinner jumps in agreeing with Dante, naming more pompous Sienese nobleman. Capocchio, as he proudly identifies himself, was a school friend of Dante. He is also in hell for practicing alchemy. The next two sinners that Dante sees, he compares to being more violent than the tale of Jupiter and Semele and more wild than Hecuba of Troy. In the first comparison, Jupiter impregnated Semele, a beautiful princess. Juno, much like how she reacted with the pestilence in Aegina, went mad with jealousy. She drove Semele's brother-in-law insane until he thought his family were lions. He murdered one son, and his wife committed double suicide with the other in grief. In the second tale, Hecuba of Troy saw her daughter sacrificed and her son murdered. The intense grief caused her to howl like a dog. One of the two rabid sinners runs up to Capocchio and bites him on the neck. Griffolino, still intently watching, tells Dante that this sinner is called Gianni Schicchi. This soul was guilty of impersonation, writing himself into a will to obtain a dead man's best horse after he died. Dante asks about the other sinner. Griffolino says that she is Mira, a princess that fell in love with her father and pretended to be someone else in order to sleep with him. Dante surveys the rest of the sinners. He sees a man swollen and bloated disgustingly. The soul manages to present himself as Adam. Adam's punishment is to be constantly thirsty forever. He can do nothing all day but imagine the river Arno near his hometown, the place where he counterfeited his coins, but he can never find water. Adam blames Guido II for his crimes, saying it was Guido that was to blame for him counterfeiting in the first place. Apparently a rumour is circling amongst the souls in this pouch that Guido is already among them, and he pledges to get his revenge. Dante asks Adam who the two sinners next to him are. They are smoking as if to catch fire. Adam names them Potiphar's wife and Sinon of the Greeks. Sinon tricked the Trojans into accepting the horse into their city. Potiphar's wife falsely accused Joseph in the Bible. Sinon starts to insult Adam for bringing his falsification to Dante's attention. The pair begin striking one another and blaming each other for being worse sinners. Dante is fascinated by the argument until Virgil scolds him. He tells Dante to stop finding enjoyment in this pointless and degrading argument. Dante speaks about Virgil's sharp speech, saying it can inflict wounds or heal at will. The two poets reconcile and move out of Circle 8. That's it, thanks for watching. Thanks for liking and subscribing up until now, it means a lot to us. If you didn't know already, you can keep up to date with the channel on Facebook and Twitter. Consider checking out our Patreon for extra content and other perks. If you're new to this channel or new to this series, click here to start from episode 1, or click here to check out a new series we're doing about ancient Greek myths. And we'll see you in the next video. Toodles!